wrote this book that I showed earlier. The camera, there we go, zoomed in. Christian Apologetics, Lutheran Introduction. Was this in 2021, 2019? I can't quite recall when it was
It was
published.
it was written in the fall of 2020, and then it was published
Okay.
about 10 months later, or I guess about a year later,
Okay.
actually. Yeah.
Can you tell us what exactly distinguishes your book from the other apologetics books that are out there?
Well, I guess let me start off by just saying a few things about like what led to my
Sure,
writing.
please.
I was preparing a course of lectures, and so I was getting notes ready. And as I was generating these notes, I started to think, well, it would be pretty easy to turn this into a book. And the lecture course was going to be a class introducing apologetics for Lutherans. So that was the target audience. That was, kind of the level that I was intending it to be pitched at, was something that would be easy to understand, something that would resonate with Lutherans, something that would make sense to them, something that would be consistent with the Lutheran tradition and the Lutheran confessions. So that was what it got me writing, or what initially inspired me to start writing this book. I had thought for a while that I might write an apologetics book at some point in the future, but wasn't really planning on doing it now or a few years, earlier from in the past.
Yeah.
3 years ago, I wasn't planning on doing it. But what ended up happening is that I started writing these notes and kind of organizing them and getting them together, and realizing that the way that I was structuring it, I thought other people might appreciate it, or other people might like what I was doing. So I ran it by Jordan Cooper. I shared the manuscript with him. It all came together pretty quickly. I wrote the whole thing probably in about a month or two.
Oh, wow.
And he thought it was pretty good. I mean, I think that it would serve a purpose if it were published. So at that point, it was just a matter of getting the copy editor to look at it and things like that. But what distinguishes it, I would say, is that it's very concise. It attempts to be brief. It attempts to kind of just deal with essential things, right? So anything that's kind of extraneous or superfluous, it's going to try to avoid those things, because it doesn't want to be a big book. The whole intention was to make something very brief, something that people could get through in a day or two or three at the most. A quick read, something that might get people thinking about things differently, or plant some new ideas, so that people would be helped when they're doing evangelism or when they're witnessing to people that they know. So I was writing it primarily for people in my church. I was thinking about what they would want from a book on this subject. Like what kind of a book would they actually pick up and actually finish, or get through all the way? And what kind of a book would they find interesting and not too dull, or, that got too deep into things, right? So I wanted to make sure that it was something that normal lay people could appreciate. So it wasn't really written for pastors. If a pastor reads it and likes it, that's great. But it was definitely written for the average churchgoer who has not read many books in this area, if any, in the past, just to kind of get them to kind of have hopefully some better answers to the kinds of questions that they might be getting from coworkers or from family members or friends and things like that. Another thing that makes it maybe a bit different is that it's written from a more or less of a Thomistic perspective. So philosophically, that's where I'm at, or that's my primary influence when it comes to thinking about metaphysics and epistemology and ethics and things like that. So that informs kind of the basic approach to the issues in terms of how I structure things, the kinds of arguments that I employ, and the assumptions that I make at the beginning. So those all kind of come from classical philosophy or from the Thomistic tradition, which, I realize all Lutherans are maybe not going to be too excited about that or too keen on that, because, Thomas has kind of an ambiguous reception, by Lutherans. But I do think that when it comes to apologetics, I think he's a great resource. And I think that Lutherans will only benefit by taking him very seriously and engaging with him. So I think the fact that the book is informed a lot by his thinking is a positive thing. I think it's a good thing. I think it helps to create a good book. And the other thing that I'll mention is that my intention, like I've already said, is that I wanted everything in there to be consistent with the Lutheran confessions. So a lot of apologetics books you read, parts of them might be compatible with what Lutherans believe, but a lot of them probably won't be, right? Or there'll probably be things here and there that just don't really sit well with what we hold to be true about different things. So for that reason, I thought the book also, was worth writing, because I thought that would help. It would help people to have an apologetics resource written from that point of view that is not going to confuse them or maybe, lead them to think along lines that actually are not actually consistent with what they want to profess and confess as Lutherans.